couple of lovely Minoys. No, I'm not going to tell you where they are. You find your own Minoys, all right?
And here's another exclusive fit on the Sports Flash. The Downtown Wyoming Weightlifting Tournament was won this year by the masked challenger from Nashville, who now carries the well-earned nickname Tennessee Hernia.
Some people say a man is made out of mud. A poor man's made out of muscle and blood. Muscle and blood and skin and bones. A mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You load 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I was born one morning when the sun didn't shine. I picked up my shovel and I walked to the mine. I loaded 16 tons, a number 9 coal, and the straw boss said, well, to bless my soul, you load 16 tons. What do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I was born one morning, it was drizzling rain. Fighting and trouble are my middle name. I was raised in the canebrake by an old mama lion. Can't no high-toned woman make me walk the line. You load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. If you see me coming, better step aside. A lot of men didn't, a lot of men died. One fist of iron, the other of steel. If the right one don't get you, then the left one will. You load 16 tons, what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
Hey, how about that? Tennessee Ernie Ford with a country classic, and it was called 16 Tons.
Here's what's on at the movies.
Well, folks, we just got a TT movie schedule, and that means a small one. There's not too many movies open in the country anymore. Thompson New Theater number 2 is Junior Bonner, rated PG, Steve McQueen and Robert Preston. At the MacB compound, it's ZPG, rated PG. Oliver Reed and Geraldine Chaplin starred in that movie. Easing on up north at Da Nang Theater number 1 is Shaft's Big Score, a restricted movie with Richard Roundtree and Moses Gunn. And at Da Nang Theater number 2, it's XYZ, a restricted movie with Elizabeth Taylor, Michael Caine, and Susanna York.
All right, men, let's look sharp, like real U.S. Marines. We're going in now, but take your seats quietly, because the main feature's already started.
Don't go near that river. Don't be hanging round old Catfish John. Come the morning, I'll always be there, walking in his footsteps in the sweet of the dawn. Let me dream of another morning and a time so long ago when the sweet magnolias blossomed, cotton fields were white as snow. Catfish John was a river hobo living by the river bend. Thinking back, I still remember I was proud to be his friend. Mama said, don't go near that river. Don't be hanging round old Catfish John.
the town of Vicksburg, traded for a chestnut mare. Still he never spoke in anger, though his load was hard to bear. Mama said, don't go near that river, don't be hanging round old Catfish John. Come the morning, I'd always be there, walking in his footsteps in the sweet Delta dawn. So let me dream of another morning. Cotton fields were white as snow.
Hey, there's a good copy of that song, Catfish John, and that was Dickie Lee at 10 minutes until 5. Well, we got another request here on the right-hand turntable, and it's a guy by the name of Gary Gray. He would like to hear another Marty Robbins tune, so why not? This is a big gunfighter ballad tune, Big Iron.
To the town of Alfredo rode a stranger one fine day. Hardly spoke to folks around him, didn't have too much to say. No one dared to ask his business, no one dared to make a slip. The stranger there among them had a big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. It was early in the morning when he rode into the town. He came riding from the south side, slowly looking all around. He's an outlaw, loose and running, came the whisper from each lip, and he's here to do some business with a big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. In this town there lived an outlaw by the name of Texas Red. Many men had tried to take him, and that many men were dead. He was vicious and a killer, though a youth of 24, and the notches on his pistol numbered 1 in 19 more, 1 in 19 more. Now the stranger started talking, made it plain to folks around. Was an Arizona Ranger, wouldn't be too long in town. He came here to take an outlaw back alive or maybe dead, and he said it didn't matter, he was after Texas Red, after Texas Red. Wasn't long before the story was relayed to Texas Red. But the outlaw didn't worry, men that tried before were dead. 20 men had tried to take him, 20 men had made a slip. 21 would be the Ranger with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. The morning passed so quickly, it was time for them to meet. It was 20 past 11 when they walked out in the street. Folks were watching from the windows, everybody held their breath. They knew this handsome Ranger was about to meet his death, about to meet his death. There was 40 feet between them when they stopped to make their play. And the swiftness of the Ranger is still talked about today. Texas Red had not cleared leather for a bullet barely ripped, and the Ranger's aim was deadly with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. It was over in a moment and the folks had gathered round. There before them lay the body of the outlaw on the ground. Oh, he might have went on living, but he made one fatal slip when he tried to match the Ranger with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his hip. Big iron, when he tried to match the Ranger with the big iron on his hip, big iron on his head.
That was Marty Robbins with one of his biggest hits. Hope you enjoyed it, Gary Gray, and that went out to you. It's called a Big Iron.
You know, it's sort of funny. Sort of. Most guys come to work for the company every day with a clean starched shirt, with their shoes shined, a haircut, combed nice and neat. But just the other day, I heard a couple of customers talking. Well, I took over this other guy's route. He was sick, and I took over for a day, you know. Anyway, these two chicks were talking about our company and how much of a loser it was. Well, I checked around, and their outfit had no gripes about service. It was just those chicks that seen this regular cat on the route, and he was always sort of, well, you know, casual about the way he dressed. Next week, he gets another job, and with the competition, I hope. I have about had my fill of being called a bum because of my buddy, the slob. How about you?
Well, I guess I've always been cast in the role of a hard-riding, hard-fighting, hard-drinking kind of a guy, and I want you to know I never use a stand-in. I've always done my own drinking.
People smile and tell me I'm the lucky one, and we've just begun. I think I'm gonna have a son. He will be like him and me, as free as a dove, conceived in love. The sun is gonna shine above. And even though we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey. Everything will bring a chain of love. And in the morning when I rise, bring a tear of joy to my eyes and tell me everything's gonna be alright. Love a guy who holds the world in a paper cup. Drink it up. Love him and he'll bring you love. And if you find he helps your mind, better take him home, home. Yeah, don't you live alone. Try to hermit lovers on. And even though we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey. Everything will bring a chain of love, love. And in the morning when I rise, bring a tear of joy to my eyes and tell me everything's gonna be alright. And even though we ain't got money, I'm so in love with you, honey. Everything will bring a chain of love, love. And in the morning when I rise, bring a tear of joy to my eyes and tell me everything's gonna be alright.
Just as sweet as she always is, that was Anne Murray and her latest single, and that was Danny's song, leaving us just enough time, folks, to kind of get out of here. We're going to kind of step aside here for 5 minutes of late world news with Army Specialist Tom Folsom. He's got all the latest haps in his bag. He's going to tell you all about it here in this next 5 minutes of late world news, so don't you go away. Because we got a special treat for you on the other side of 5 minutes of news, and that's some great town and country music. This gooder and snuff and better than taters ain't half as dusty, I swear.
This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
When you go to the States, leave your weapons and ammunition in Vietnam. If you're caught trying to take firearms or explosives aboard the plane, you could be in serious trouble. An accidental explosion could knock your D-Rose flight into the Pacific. Don't take chances with weapons and explosives.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources.
It's 5 p.m. In the top of the news, it has been learned that the 20 American prisoners repatriated from North Vietnam Sunday refused to leave their prison compound at first. The sources say a senior U.S. officer from the Four-Power Joint Military Commission had to visit the compound and convince the prisoners they were really being freed. The Americans doubted they would be released Sunday because previously they had been told they would be released later. Meanwhile, it is reported that the processing of the 20 newly released men is going so smoothly that several may be released soon to fly home. They'll include Navy Lieutenant James Bailey of Kosciuszko, Mississippi, who was released earlier than scheduled by Hanoi because of illness in his family. Henry Kissinger has flown to Tokyo from Peking, where he conferred with Communist China's Premier Zhou Enlai for 5 hours yesterday in what the Florida White House termed frank and wide-ranging conversations. Kissinger is slated to hold talks with Japanese leaders in Tokyo. After an overnight stay in the Japanese capital, Kissinger will return to Washington. The Pentagon has refused to comment on a CBS report that the Navy has trained dolphins for intelligence work. The network said in a broadcast Sunday night that a dolphin had been trained to place a detection device in a foreign harbor. The mission reportedly involved determining what kind of atomic fuel the Russians are using in their nuclear submarines. Newsman Morley Safer said the planning and retrieving operation is one of several tasks done by the Navy's biological weapons system. It uses trained dolphins, whales, and sea lions. Safer said the dolphin that placed the detecting device in the foreign harbor went back weeks later and retrieved it for what he termed American intelligence analysis. He gave no further details. The Pentagon disclosed last September that the Navy had trained whales to recover such objects as torpedoes from the ocean floor. St. Louis teachers have voted to end their strike. They've accepted the latest offer from the Board of Education. The walkout is 28 days old and has kept 103,000 youngsters out of class. The board says schools will reopen Tuesday. The settlement proposal included an immediate $200 pay hike and another $800 in 18 months. It was approved by 90% of the St. Louis Teachers Association and 75% of the St. Louis Teachers Union. The Florida White House continues to maintain a news blackout on what President Nixon will discuss in a closed-door session with AFL-CIO leaders in Miami Beach. However, sources say the president will make an appeal for organized labor support of his economic policies. Many of the 35 members of the AFL-CIO Executive Council, headed by AFL-CIO President George Meany, are preparing a list of complaints for discussion with President Nixon. It includes the loss of American jobs to foreign competition, wage controls, and rising food prices. A federal court jury in Chicago resumes deliberations for a third day today in the trial of federal appeals court judge Otto Kerner. He is accused of having accepted racing stock as a bribe while he was governor of Illinois. Kerner was elected governor in 1960 and served until 1968 when he was appointed to the federal bench. Also on trial with him on similar charges is Theodore Isaacs, a former state revenue director of Illinois. The jury had been deliberating the charges against the two men for 13 hours before adjourning Sunday night. Strong political overtones developed Sunday in the student unrest in Greece. Former politicians and the last constitutionally appointed premier appeared as defense witnesses at a trial of 11 students in Athens. The students are charged with insulting and resisting authority during disturbances last Wednesday in Athens at Greece's best higher school of learning, the Polytechnic Institute. Students were demonstrating against anti-student legislation while abstaining from classes. Defense witnesses Sunday contended police had no right to enter the campus in an effort to disperse students assembled for a protest meeting. In other news, British labor unions have rejected the Conservative government's anti-inflation policies. The unions have demanded instead spending policies to soak the rich and the large corporations. Senator Gaylord Nelson says he'll introduce in the Senate this week a bill to clamp federal controls on the nation's drug industry. He says it's designed to protect Americans against unsafe, poorly tested, and overpriced medications. And finally in the news, Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chairman J.W. Fulbright says he's ready to bargain with the White House about supporting administration plans to rebuild North Vietnam. That's AFVN News to the Hour. I'm Army Specialist Tom Folston reporting.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. It was August the 15th, 1962, that the Armed Forces Radio Vietnam commenced operation. The first broadcasts originated from studios in the Rex Hotel in Saigon. The start of a proud history for AFVN.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. In August 1964, there was a decision to expand the AFVN operation. The studios were moved from the Rex Hotel to the Brinks BOQ. This provided more operational space, and a 1-kilowatt transmitter was set into operation to improve the AFVN signal.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. The later months of 1964 saw many improvements for AFVN. Repeater transmitters were strategically placed throughout Vietnam so that almost all Americans could pick up their voice of from the Delta to the DMZ.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. On the Christmas Eve of 1964, AFVN was airing Christmas carols when the Viet Cong set off 250 pounds of plastic explosive, partially destroying the station. Repairs were made, and AFVN was back on the air within hours.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. February 1965, AFVN expanded radio programming from 18 to 24 hours daily. Also, this was the month that FM programming started in Vietnam, providing an easy listening format of frequency-modulated sounds.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. February the 7th, 1966, television made its debut in Vietnam via the Blue Eagle aircraft. This was a videotaped program of speeches by Premier Nguyen Cao Ky, Ambassador Henry Cabot Lodge, and General William C. Westmoreland.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. A big step forward came about on March 24th, 1966, when AFVN connected a two-way link with AFRTS-LA via underwater cable. This made it possible for sports events, speeches, and special programming to be aired in Vietnam as they were happening in the United States.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. April the 13th, 1966, a VC attack on Tan Son Nhut Air Base damaged all Blue Eagle aircraft. There was an estimated repair time of 13 weeks. However, the professional maintenance crews at the base had the show back on the air May the 11th, 5 weeks ahead of schedule.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. It was September the 25th, 1966, that AFVN put its first television van into operation in Quy Nhon. And on October the 21st, the second TV van was operational on the Monkey Mountain complex serving the servicemen in the Da Nang area.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. On October the 25th, 1966, the ground facilities in Saigon were completed and operational, thus eliminating Blue Eagle aircraft requirements for the Saigon area. However, the Blue Eagle did continue in operation south of Saigon to service the Delta with Vietnamese programming.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. Late 1966 and early 1967 saw a rapid buildup in AFVN operations. The third television van was installed on Dragon Mountain in Pleiku, and the fourth van became operational at Nha Trang. This era marks the first time Americans ever had TV in a combat zone.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. Operations continued to expand throughout 1967 when TV Van 5 was installed in the city of Hue, and Van 6 was sent to Tuy Hoa. Field strength reports were then taken, and it was determined that 85% of the U.S. servicemen were able to receive American television.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. Tet 1968, the ever-present conflict in Vietnam took its toll on AFVN facilities. Nha Trang TV took a heavy mortar attack, and Da Nang's transmitters received rocket hits where the transmission lines were severed. These lines were repaired within 2 hours while they were under attack.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. February the 4th, 1968 was a bad day for AFVN. Our station at Hue was overrun by NVA regulars. In this skirmish, one sergeant was killed in his quarters and 5 men were taken prisoner. Their service and dedication will always be remembered by the men and women of AFVN.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. 1968 saw a drastic change in AFVN radio programming. A survey was taken and the results proved that 75 to 80% of the listening audience was under 25. So the new rock sound was put into action to accommodate that overwhelming majority.
News compiled from major commercial and military news sources. This is the American Forces Vietnam Network.
The end of an era. Flashback. Shortly after Christmas 1968, AFVN was instrumental in the release of 3 U.S. prisoners. Messages were broadcast over AFVN to the